Mario & Luigi Brothership was announced over 3 months ago now, and yet it has not left my mind since. I live and breathe this game. I mean, we're looking at the first brand new MNL in almost a decade, pried from the cold, dead hands of Alpha Dream within a year of 2 other major victories for Mario RPG fans. Honestly, I can't be totally sure this isn't some sort of prolonged tragedy-induced fantasy, but if I'm not dreaming, then we've got a lot to talk about. A single piece of casual Brothership coverage was never gonna cut it, and realistically speaking, neither will this video. This is the gaming equivalent to a long-lost family member's triumphant return. Except they're cel-shaded now and also sound kinda different. Regardless, you know we had to pull out a classic for this one, the 50 Hopes wishlist video. That's right, we're New Horizons pre-releasing this thing. It's the least I can do for such an occasion. But enough disorganized, overly hyped rambling. Let's get into slightly more coherent, overly hyped rambling. Yeah, new Mario & Luigi! We've got a lot of wishes on the way that greatly push the boundaries of plausibility, so let's kick things off with something a little less audacious. Keep things classic. The Mario & Luigi series is always one that's impressed me with its creativity. In one game, you go inside Bowser. In another, you go inside a big Yoshi. In another, you go inside Bowser. As much as I always love seeing what wacky reinventions the devs attach to the Bros' newest adventure, Brothership is in a very unique position of not really needing the wheel reinvented. That isn't to say there aren't innovations or creative advancements to be made, trust me, we've got a lot of them to discuss, but after 9 years of absence, I find myself really drawn to the idea of a Mario & Luigi game that plays things fairly straight. I don't need 2D segments, I don't need a third playable partner, I just need this. Mario and Luigi are back, and I feel like that alone can carry a game, you know? But this isn't a video of tempered expectations, this is hoping and dreaming. There's not gonna be a lot of begging for them to play it safe going forward. And speaking of play, gameplay is a perfect place to start. The fast, energetic pace of these games has always been spectacular, but there's a lot that can be done to maintain and accentuate that addictive design. Starting with battling, a core element of the franchise, I'd love to see combat evolved. Past Mario & Luigi games did a great job of ensuring the battle system always felt fresh. Be it through playable Bowser, Paper Mario crossing over, or oops, all Luigis, each game put in the work to make encounters interesting. But all the while, the core combat experience remained mostly the same. There's some key differences if you look for them, Partners in Time's consumable Bros items, Paper Jam's exclusion of badges, but overall, if you picked up a Mario & Luigi game, you knew what kind of experience you were getting. And that's something I love about these games. While Paper Mario was seeking to reinvent itself with debatable levels of success, it was nice to know that I could turn to Mario & Luigi and receive a new spin on a formula that had long been proven successful. But that's the thing, these are new spins. I'm not sure if I'd call any of these evolutions, which isn't to say they aren't extremely fun, but none of them really feel like they're pushing combat forward for the series when you know they're just going to be thrown out next time around. What I'm proposing are concrete changes to this beloved system, and I'm only really mentioning this because Brothership itself seems to be down for it. In the trailers, we see Mario and Luigi teaming up for what are seemingly regular jump and hammer attacks. Considering we know item-based Bros attacks are back and are looking more ambitious than ever, this has to be something different. Does this use BP? Can you combine turns with the Bros? What happens if one of them is knocked out? I'm not sure, but I can't wait to see what other ways this system gets pushed forward after all these years. But who cares about pushing things forward when you can drag them back instead? Call that my AC philosophy. Nostalgia, man, it's one heck of a motivator, and as a Bowser's Inside Story Superstar Saga elitist, you know I've got a lot of it to share. Listen, I want things brought back and I want them looking good. First up, advance moves. As much as I adore the gameplay loop in this series, I'll admit we're not doing a great job of beating the baby's first RPG allegations when the late game consists near entirely of spamming your strongest moves. Advances could offer an excellent dose of complexity and diversity in this regard. Honestly, I can't believe these never reappeared after Superstar Saga. Revitalizing all of your Bros attacks with more difficult variations to receive different or stronger results seems like a perfect way to up the intrigue in battling. Not only do you effectively double the amount of moves available to unlock, but it also ensures that even your earliest Bros attacks have the potential to be useful near the end of the game. And just imagine how creative advances could get when this is what we're working with now. The different animations, the different impacts, it could be amazing. Also, bring back hand abilities. This one doesn't necessarily have to relate to battling, I'd be fine with just seeing them return to the Bros' overworld arsenal, but if we're talking about spicing things up in combat, it doesn't get much spicier than fire. This one's a little iffier. With the Fire Flower Bros attack becoming a series staple, it's a little harder to imagine these elemental abilities making their return in a non-item based fashion. But one, they're really cool, and two, puzzle applications for hand powers could still be super interesting. They just have to be integrated well, and with us seemingly heading for a classic Mario and Luigi adventure, I'd say there's definitely room for that integration. But I'm willing to make a compromise, okay? Let's circle back to what really matters here. It's cool. It's really cool. Look, you don't have to bring back hand abilities, but give Luigi back his electric theming, okay? I'm so tired of this Smash Bros. Core green fire when we got the perfect complement to Mario's pyrokinesis back in 03. And I don't just want this in Brothership, no. This needs to cause ripples through the franchise until everyone, Nintendo most of all, understands that lightning is Luigi's element. Also, he says thunder funny. Thunder! We're getting more and more controversial here, because I want badges back too. It wasn't until recently that I discovered that this is something of a hot take. As mixed as its reception was, Paper Jam did offer its fair share of novel additions to the series' gameplay, one of which was abandoning the long-standing badge system in favor of these new battle cards. I don't like these as much. Yeah, they're kind of objectively more useful, they give you more options, but I don't know, there was something so charming about the mixing and matching of badges to find the perfect effect to complement your battle approach. It felt more personalized than creating a laundry list of status effects and power-ups. That said, badges could definitely be pushed even further to create a system that gives us the best of both worlds. What if you could fuse badges to create even crazier combinations? Or what if there was simply a greater variety of badges to choose from, building upon the scope of battle cards while maintaining the addictive mashup system that worked so well in older titles? Maybe just let us invoke multiple badge effects at once. Whatever the case, I'd love to see them make a return, or, in the case of battle cards coming back, see them pushed in a more dynamic direction. This one isn't something I'm too worried about, since the Superstar Saga and Bowser's Inside Story remakes reverted things back to how they should be, but seeing as the last original title in the series got this wrong, I've gotta call it out. Please, let us choose which stats to boost while leveling up. I'm not sure why Paper Jam decided to throw this out. Must have been scared of my stash. But it should go without saying that giving the player agency in how they're rewarded goes a long way in making them feel rewarded. It's not like it was a horribly unbalanced system either. Previous games went out of their way to incentivize an even loadout by decreasing the boosts given to overleveled stats while increasing the ones available for underleveled stats. So what if I want an unkillable HP tank Luigi or the glassest of glass cannon Marios? Or stash? Allowing me to personalize my playthrough in this way not only enriches the experience, but ensures that subsequent experiences can be even more varied if I so choose. Hopefully we don't have to worry about this being retaken away, but I'm making it a wish regardless. Alright, let's talk Bros attacks. Arguably the most addictive and engaging portion of this series' combat, these special moves keep battles thrilling with their tightly paced action commands and visual diversity. Ranging from simple item usage to this, Bros attacks help in defining the game they appear within. With Brothership being the first HD game in the series and inheriting all the power that comes with it, there's obviously a lot of fan excitement to see just how crazy these moves can get this time around, and I'm no different. I've got a few Bros attacks related wishes that I'd like to go over. First up, to get the pessimism out of the way, easy on the length, guys. With Brothership Bros attacks being these massive, visually spectacular, cutscene-inducing power moves, I'm a little worried they could potentially disrupt the pace of battling. The ones we've seen as of writing this, being 3D Red Shell and this new Zappinator attack, don't seem too long, but the series has struggled with certain Bros attacks feeling disjointed in the past, and we did hold on that Thundercloud for longer than we needed to. I love how grand these new moves look so far, but let's hope gameplay speed isn't sacrificed for the sake of sitting back and watching big damage happen. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm about to pitch sacrificing gameplay speed to watch big damage happen. Please give me one infinite attack. Just one. Make it late game, make it optional, make it low damaging if I can't pull off 50 consecutive moves, I don't care. Just bring it back, please. There are few things more satisfying than getting on a hot streak with knockback Bros, or keeping up with the magic windows as they ramp up to light speed. Is this contradictory to what I just said? Probably. I don't really care. Let me copy flower my way to victory, Nintendo. And on the subject of all these classic Bros attacks, I'd like to see a couple in game. Now, this one's tough. The ratio of new Bros attacks to old Bros attacks should obviously lean heavily in the favor of new, but when looking at the sheer scale of these moves in Brothership and seeing how an attack as simple as 3D Red Shell is now the coolest thing I've ever seen, it's hard not to imagine just how sick some of these old powers could be with a new home console coat of paint. Unfortunately, with both 3D Red Shell and 3D Green Shell confirmed, along with hints of Bomb Derby potentially making a comeback, we've already got a decent portion of old attacks. But if I could choose one more move to see come back, it'd be Magic Window, sorry. But seriously, it's hard to picture another Bros attack that could benefit so greatly from Brothership's art direction and increased visual fidelity. The magnitude of all these Mario Brothers portaling in to deal their damage would be amazing. Mixed flowers could also be cool, especially if the conventional fire flower doesn't return. Sure, we don't have the baby bros, but nailing the timing and getting to see a whole sun fall from the sky would definitely be a visual treat. Ooh, and Jetpack Bash could be so much frantic fun if they turned Luigi's prompt into a mash and had a more cinematic angle depending on the caliber of your impact. And I gotta stop because I could do this for literally any attack in the series. They'd all look incredible. Except for you, I don't really like you. But, seeing as we're talking about how to cram in all these Bros attacks, who says 10 has to be the maximum? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we should have like 20 Bros attacks. I was literally just complaining earlier about how certain moves feeling useless would be a huge shame, and an excessive amount would make that problem 10 times worse. Not to mention how it could affect pacing. But seeing as I'm already hoping for this game to have a larger scope, which we'll get into in a second, I don't see a problem with giving us a couple more moves. Like, keep 5 each as the standard, but maybe Mario and Luigi can both unlock a secret 6th or even 7th move by completing certain side quests or finding hidden bonuses. Oh, and that would be a great place for the aforementioned classic Bros attacks. Imagine gathering all the plug points, or whatever this game's collectibles are, before the final battle and being graced with a returning magic window, or Mega Thwonk, or Sling Sniper. You freak. A perfect surprise and perfect addition without going overboard and flooding the game in Bros attacks you won't end up using. Okay, we're finally done with battling related wishes, at least mostly. Let's move on to general gameplay. This is where that grand scope I was just talking about comes into play. Now, this one's a little harder to fully pinpoint because it's much less specific than our previous hopes, but basically, I just want this game to feel big. Brothership is a hugely important entry in the series for so many reasons. It's the first Mario & Luigi game in nearly a decade. It's the first Mario & Luigi game in a unique location in over a decade. It's the series' first home console and HD release, and it's the first original Mario RPG that's objectively an RPG on the Switch. There's a lot riding on this game, not just for fans of the previous titles, but for would-be fans of the series and Mario fans in general. So, with all that considered, I want this to feel like the biggest Mario & Luigi game yet. I want it to feel so bold and monumental that it could only be pulled off on the Switch. Larger, grander locations, a wealth of secondary objectives, spectacle the likes of which we've never seen in a Mario game. And the whole seafaring theme feels like the perfect avenue to explore a more impressive M&L. You've got the bros sailing across the world, stopping at all these beautiful, unique settings. It just feels important, you know? Paper Jam gets a lot of flack, some of it being very deserved, but like I said earlier, that doesn't mean there aren't any positives we can take away from it. First up, running. This one becomes especially useful if the new locations are indeed as sizable as I hope them to be. It's just a nice convenience, especially when considering the retreading that these games often employ. Wait, hold up, sidetrack. We'll get back to Paper Jam appreciation in a second, but while on the subject, let's cut back on some of that retreading. Look, I get it when the territory in the genre, and obviously there's a lot of fun to be had in exploring new portions of an old area with a new ability. I'm not suggesting they remove it in its entirety, but when I think back to the Alta-bed, I shudder. Backtracking and retreading can be well executed. Just look at Bowser's Inside Story. You explore the overworld with Bowser, then get to do it as the bros and use their completely separate movesets to unlock new areas and fight smaller enemies. It's pretty perfect. Keep the cool exploration-y stuff in old areas, but in good doses. Okay, back to PJ. Skippable tutorials? Yes, please. Debatably, the series' most consistently critiqued element, tutorials in these games haven't always been great, boiling over in Dream Team specifically until Paper Jam dared ask the question, why is the stove on to begin with? Removing the option to speed through pace-breaking lessons would be a major step backwards for the series, one that I really can't see them making, but, you know, new studio and everything, can't be too careful. Mario & Luigi Dream Team marked the series' first and currently only inclusion of hard mode, and I think now would be a great time to bring it back. These games have never been super challenging in their main campaign, so giving players the opportunity to take on a more difficult journey, preferably from the get-go, would be a very welcome addition. And speaking of challenge, the Battle Ring has been a series staple since Bowser's Inside Story, except it was called the Gauntlet there, which sounds infinitely cooler. Less cool naming aside, this is evidently a feature that should return in Brothership, if only to see who the awesome bonus boss would be. Inside Story had Bowser X, Dream Team had Bowser Jr., Paper Jam had Dry Bowser, I'm just realizing these are all Bowsers. Maybe it'll be Bowser again. Maybe it'll be Shrowser. Remember that guy? I didn't. I had to look him up. Moving on to something that isn't just a feature from past games though, I would love to see Brothership break a long-standing series convention and have a post-game. Mario & Luigi does not do canonical post-final boss content. You want to hop back in the world? Well, either the final boss is hopping back in with you, or you're starting a new save file. But seeing as we're entering a new era for the series, I don't see why this has to be the case anymore. I'd love to have more to do after the credits roll. It doesn't even need to be a lot, maybe just tying up a loose end or two from the main story or finishing some additional quests. Again, seeing as we are now Wind Wakering, maybe we gain access to a new island after the campaign is complete, providing a bite-sized chunk of adventure to enjoy even after the curtains closed. Combined with the pre-existing bonus content like the battle ring and whatever minigame compilations the game could provide, Brothership has the chance to keep players engaged for way longer than past games did. Remember giant battles? Those were cool, right? The visuals, the music, the scale in a very literal sense. It always felt like a big deal when one occurred, like the game was showing off. They never had to tell me twice. My DS would already be on its side before the screens even tilted because I knew that a generational showdown was about to occur. Remember papercraft battles? Those were kind of lame, right? It felt like a poor man's Sorry, what was that? You don't remember papercraft battles? I don't blame you. It felt like a poor man's imitation of what giant battles were able to achieve in the previous two titles and especially Dream Team. Gone was the incredible scope and enjoyable, if flawed, gameplay, replaced with the Nintendo equivalent of playing with cardboard, which would then be outdone by the literal Nintendo equivalent of playing with cardboard. I have a point, I promise. I don't want to see giant battles return, but I do want to see them try their hand at another giant battle equivalent. These felt like rewards. They did wonders for the pacing of their games by marking the ends of specific arcs, and Brothership needs something like that too. If they could find a way to make it engaging, I'd love to see some sort of boat battle concept, using Shipshape Island to duke it out with enemy battleships, firing cannons, defeating invading enemies, racing or ramming into the opposition. The problem is that in my head, this feels more papercrafty than gianty in its pacing, but if they made it not hair-pullingly slow, I think it could be a banger. Okay, last dedicated gameplay wish, and just hear me out, alright? I know, this is risky. Games that prioritize co-op can often end up with single player that feels lackluster and half-baked. But I don't want it prioritized, I just want it there. Not because it'll improve the gameplay experience or anything, but because it would be really, really funny. I mean, come on, can you picture trying to pull off a bros attack with a friend, trying to coordinate your way through a boss battle? It sounds ridiculous, I love it! And the form factor of the Switch, and Switch 2, feels like it lends itself so well to this sort of thing. Does it work super well with how the series is conventionally designed? Not really, no. In the overworld, Player 2 is destined to have an extremely boring experience until it's time to do a funny spin jump or something. But the concept of multiplayer MNL fights cracks me up so much that I really want to see it come to fruition. Obviously, just not at the expense of the game offering a stellar and focused single-player experience. Maybe this is something that would work better as a side mode. Yeah, I'd be cool with that. Okay, gameplay is behind us, and now we're on to story. And first things first, we're hitting that grand scope equivalent. I just want the story to be ambitious. Mario and Luigi games, while well written, are not known for their deep and engaging narratives. That doesn't mean the series hasn't had its fair share of cool moments or well executed arcs, but generally speaking, Mario RPG fans understand that if you're looking for story, you go to Paper Mario. Or, to a game that doesn't have Mario in it. But just like I'm hoping the game feels vast in a way previous Mario and Luigi games didn't, I feel like having a surprisingly ambitious story would be a great way to make it feel like an evolution of its predecessors. And I'm not saying I need like an ultra serious tone or for Mario to lament his relationship with his father, but something on the level of those aforementioned praised Mario stories would still be a pretty significant step up, and I don't think you need to sacrifice the series' goofy charm to achieve that. Another hope I have for the game's narrative feel is that it feels like Mario and Luigi 6. We don't need Mario saying, "Gee, Luigi, remember that time we fought Fawful?" or something similar every 2 seconds, but I'm hoping we have a certain level of connective tissue between Brothership and the rest of the series, specifically in how the characters act. One of the coolest aspects of Bowser's characterization in Dream Team was that he felt like a Bowser who went through Bowser's Inside Story. There weren't major deviations from how he normally acted, but he was a little smarter, a little more calculated, like the events of the previous game informed his actions in the new one. Those traits should carry over in Brothership. Similarly, the Luigi in Brothership should feel like a Luigi who went through Dream Team. I'm not saying they should revoke his cowardly role, it's an iconic element of Luigi, and especially this Luigi, but we should get the vibe that adventures past have given him courage he wouldn't otherwise possess. But there's a lot more they can do to ensure this game feels like a true follow-up to its predecessors. For one, bring back the original characters. I get that Mario and Luigi seemingly get whisked away to another world, or maybe dimension in this game, but this series has a wealth of original characters that make it feel like Mario and Luigi. Bowser and Peach seemingly made their way through, so who's to say they couldn't as well? Starlo, Kylie Koopa, Brook Monsieur, the Elite Trio, Toadbert. We're in a new creative era for Mario, and while I'll never turn my nose up at new characters and new locales, it feels like the perfect time for these old creative characters to make their return. But if not, I'll settle for returning races. The Brox, the Beanish, the Pillow, all species original to the Mario Luigi series that would make Brothership and its world feel more cohesively connected. Having the first non-fossil Beanish people in Dream Team after a decade did wonders for tying that game to its otherwise disconnected predecessors, and now Brothership has the opportunity to do the same. Their presence shouldn't overpower this new outlet species, but in small doses, I think they'd be a delight. But on the subject of returning faces, obviously our most notable inclusions are Peach and Bowser, two series staples because, it's a Mario game. And I've got some wishes in store for both. First up, Peach, and there's really only one thing I want to see. Give her some agency. This is one aspect in which Mario and Luigi has always remained firmly behind its RPG brothers. This genre gives us the opportunity to see the Mushroom Kingdom fleshed out in ways that would never be done in a platformer, and so much of that is character-based. In an RPG, Peach doesn't just have to be a damsel, and even if she is, she can still have her own story to delve into within that context. Mario and Luigi has not done much to explore this, and I think now is the perfect time. The bits of Peach we have seen from trailers do look promising. She seemingly has her own little crew of outlet buddies now, which at least puts her in an interesting new environment. Whether or not Brothership makes use of that is up for debate, but as of right now, I think things are looking up. But let's move on to the man of the hour, King Koopa himself, the face of this series at its best. There are few things more beloved in this world than Bowser in an RPG setting. This is truly where the character thrives, where he feels the most Bowser. So naturally, I've got some expectations I'd like to see fulfilled to keep this reputation upheld. First and foremost, I want an alliance. My hot take as a fan of this character is that Bowser works best as a begrudging anti-hero, forced to team up with Mario by circumstances out of his control. That doesn't mean I think villain Bowser should be completely retired, he is gaming's most iconic villain after all, but ally Bowser is such a rare, enjoyable treat that I'm always looking for a new excuse to see it. In Mario Luigi specifically, he hasn't willingly teamed up with the bros since the beginning of Superstar Saga 2 decades ago. A lot has happened in the series since then, so it probably shouldn't be the easiest decision for him to make, but if the situation is strenuous enough, I believe that Bowser will still join the team to save the world for himself. Give him plenty of time to be villainous, but let him help our cause, even if it's just for a moment. Second Bowser wish, make him funny. This one goes without saying. If you're making a Mario RPG and Bowser is not the comedic standout of the game, you've done something wrong. In fact, there's an interesting correlation here. If you rank the quality of Mario RPGs by overall Bowser hilarity, you'd probably end up with a generally agreeable list. Again, I hate to make it seem like it's the only game I care about, but Bowser's inside story hits such a great balance. Bowser is hysterical, the jokes are almost unending, and yet the game always knows when to amp up his cool factor and let that speak for itself. It's a balancing act, and the balance is like 90% funny, 10% cool. He's still gotta be mostly funny, makes the cool moments pop. Circling back to his role in the narrative though, we gotta talk about something. The Bowser final boss. The Mario and Luigi series has gone out of its way to ensure that the final battle is always some version of Bowser, whether that be Bowser himself, a dark copy, or a soul inhabiting his body. And while I think I'm a bigger fan of this than some might be, at least when it's not stupid, I think it might be time to let it go. New era, man. This is the time where conventions can be broken, and I really don't know how many more times you can make Final Bowser interesting. We've done Possession, we've done Clones, we've done Bowser Squared. What else is on the table at this point? I think a good compromise is to just have Bowser be involved with the main villain. We don't need a team up like with Phantasma, but something. Maybe they have their own rivalry. Maybe Bowser's the key to defeating them. Maybe they need Bowser's blood to create their cataclysmic world-ending weapon. I don't know, just get creative with it. I still love Bowser in these games, and dialing him back in this specific area doesn't mean less Bowser. It just means more Bowser for new situations. Speaking of that new villain though, very simple wish, just let them be intimidating. I don't expect them to be void of comedic moments, it's a Mario and Luigi game, but when everything's said and done, I want to be able to look back and think, man, that villain made an impact. I'd love to see another villain in this series that feels threatening and capable, who gets moments throughout the story where things are played completely straight. Ideally, seeing a heroic Bowser alliance would give the main villain more time in the spotlight, in which they can hopefully cement themselves amongst the Mario franchise's best. A surprisingly ambitious story can't go down without a surprisingly ambitious villain, at least in this context. Last narrative-based wish here, I hope this is the start of something bigger, a new saga for Mario and Luigi. I don't need there to be major unanswered questions by the end of the game, or a to be continued screen teasing the next entry, but it'd be nice to see a hint that some narrative element from Brothership could be followed up on in a future title. They don't have to build up a new fawful and dedicate themselves to a new trilogy, but so long as the story they tell is satisfying, I don't see why they can't imply that some aspect of it could be continued in some fashion somewhere down the road. It can be subtle, maybe we won't even understand it until we see the next game, but wouldn't that be such a cool thing to look back on? Our next segment is much shorter and relates to presentation, audio and visual. And we gotta talk about the elephant in the room here. The more music I hear from Mario Luigi Brothership, the more certain I feel that series composer Yoko Shimomura did not return for the soundtrack. What we've heard so far doesn't necessarily sound bad, it just doesn't have the distinct sound I normally correlate to her work, outside of some familiar instrumentation that could easily be chalked up to maintaining the series' musical identity regardless of composer. But obviously, my greatest hope for this segment is that I'm wrong and stupid and Miss Shimomura is back after all. Maybe my ears are broken, maybe they're just going in a different direction and we haven't heard some of her more recognizable tunes yet. It all sounds like cope, but you know, gotta throw it out there. However, prepping myself for what I believe to be the more likely option, please just let the soundtrack be good. I've often seen people describe the Mario & Luigi series music as energetic, lightning in audio form, and while that's certainly part of it, I think I'd personally define it as versatile. Part of what made Shimomura's direction for the series so special is that she nailed everything. Yes, the high energy of the battle themes was a major factor, but she knew when the music needed to be wistful, when it needed to be serene or epic or tragic, and always delivered. My sole hope for whoever may be composing Brothership's OST in her stead is that some semblance of this versatility is captured. Also, keep Bowser's theme from the last 3 games, that's like one of the best Bowser themes. Onto the visual aspect of presentation, clearly there's not a ton I can wish for in this regard. I don't know if you guys have looked at this game lately, but it's kinda shockingly perfect. Mario and Luigi are as animated as I've always wanted them to be, the cel-shaded style with thick outlines feels like the old key art brought to life, and like we mentioned earlier, the bros moves. I mean, come on. That said, there's still a couple things to hope for. Performing well is a big one. It's gonna be 30 FPS, which is fine. We haven't had 60 since Inside Story, I guess, but I just hope the Switch doesn't start to show its age with this one. I can't imagine it'll be particularly difficult to keep consistent. It's far from the most ambitious game on the platform, but I feel like it's important to mention regardless. No slowdown, limited pop-in, essentially, don't make me wish I was playing this on the Switch too. Even though I'll probably wish that for every game dropping in the next year. Brothership being the first non-sprite-based HD game in the series has opened up numerous opportunities, but one of the most notable is granting us some real cutscenage. And really, I just want to see them make as much use out of that as possible. We've seen glimpses of that opening cutscene alongside other ambitious looking ones throughout the game, and they look incredible. Obviously, I don't need every character interaction to be a fully rendered movie, but we have the opportunity to see some truly cinematic set pieces in this game, to really up the ante of certain narrative moments. I know this is a mid-budget venture, but I'd love to see just how far these cutscenes can get pushed. Whoa, did you hear that? That's the sound of future me crying upon realizing just how long this video is gonna take to edit. You know what that means, time for a lightning round. Ready? Let's do this. Bring back Luigi socks. You don't even have to put them on his model, just drop them in a suitcase or something. Put them in a drawer somewhere, I don't know. Have Peach say, Luigi, you forgot your iconic red and white striped socks at home. Something, anything, we need acknowledgement. Speaking of, in every other game, we get a solo Luigi segment where Mario is missing or captured or something, and technically, since it just happened in Paper Jam, we'd have to wait until Mario & Luigi 7, but I don't care, it's been a decade. Give us the Luigi segment. I know I said earlier that I don't want an overbearing amount of referential callbacks, but I'ma be real, a few callbacks would be kinda nice. Try and tell me that fighting the Shroobs in BIS wasn't one of the coolest, get it, moments in the series. It doesn't even need to be on that level, but some sort of direct reference would be appreciated. From Dream Team onward, the bros no longer get tired while holding their hammers to counterattack. I don't like that, it removed a pivotal timing aspect of battling and contributed to the loss of difficulty. Bring back heavy hammers. Call me a hypocrite as a Starlo fan, but I look at Snoutlet and I get the vibe that they could potentially be annoying. My hope is for that to not be the case. It probably won't be, but I've got my eye on you. So far, we've seen a couple new iterations of old enemies from past games. That's cool, it further ties Brothership to its predecessors while still putting its own unique twist on things. I wouldn't mind seeing a sizable amount of old classics spruced up, both in HD and Concordia's unique aesthetic. This is not going to happen because we would know about it by now, but come on, aWiibo. Look at Connie and tell me she isn't built to be an aMiibo. And Mario and Luigi themselves, with these designs sharing the same stand, would be so cool. I'm not even an amiibo guy, but I'd have 10 of these. Double that if you made a Brook Monsieur one too. One of the cutest trends in these games is having Mario and Luigi learn new moves from characters conveniently dressed in red and green. It doesn't happen all the time post Superstar Saga, but it's delightful when it does, and I'd love to see some of that in Brothership too. Having a couple red and green plugs who are strangely competent throughout would be a stellar bit. Dream Team did this thing where it had really stupid equipment based on completely irrelevant system factors for gameplay, like gear that increased damage by 400% on your birthday. That's hilarious. Do that again. A hammer that doubles proficiency in handheld mode. Overalls that change the status effect depending on your Joy-Con color. Just completely moronic, useless additions that I would never use. Please, I'm asking. Kevin Afghani is Mario & Co.'s new voice from Wonder onwards, and I think he's done a pretty good job so far, but my only hope is that Brothership gives him a chance to truly spread his wings. Mario and Luigi are so expressive in these games, so outspoken, and I think this series more than any other can help him not only get comfortable with the roles, but make them his own. Alright, lightning round over. Back on track for a video that's just too long instead of way too long. Final stretch of things I think deserve their own focused segment to talk about. And we're rolling back around to something unspecific, cause who doesn't love using vibes as a metric? I want Brothership to feel hearty. There's certain Switch-era games that aren't the AAA genre definers that send reverberations through the industry, but still feel so fully satisfying to finish, you know? Like a really filling lunch instead of dinner. I remember getting that feeling when I first finished Forgotten Land, and more recently, Pikmin 4. These games aren't the longest or the most pivotal, but stood out because of how fulfilling they were. That's the vibe I want from Brothership. Just a general feeling of high quality and focus. From the trailers and promo alone, I definitely get that impression, but we'll have to wait and see. As far as wishes go, you really can't get more wishful than this, but I'd love to see Brothership have wider franchise impact. With us entering something of a creative renaissance for the Mario series, this feels like the perfect time to tie together nicher aspects of the franchise and up the cohesiveness overall. What if Connie was playable in the next Mario Kart, or perhaps more reasonably, what if Concordia was a racetrack at the very least? I'm all for one-off adventures, but when you look at a series like Kirby and see how self-celebratory it is for almost every game under its belt, it's hard not to want something similar for Mario. They don't even need to be that direct, maybe just a Concordia in the next Paper Mario like we got a Beanish in Thousand Year Door. It would be something. Brothership is of course the first Mario & Luigi game being helmed by a new studio after Alpha Dream's unfortunate bankruptcy in 2019. My sole wish is that this game has as many ex-Alpha Dreamers as reasonably possible. I want there to be even more working on this game that we didn't know about. Devs presumed retired that have in fact been working on Mario & Luigi behind the scenes. Collect them from other studios, get them from temporary consulting roles, just anything to make the transition between the old games and Brothership feel as seamless as possible. I'm sure that'll happen regardless of whether they have another dozen Alpha Dream employees or not, but I'd find it even more encouraging. On the subject though, one of my biggest hopes for Brothership is just that the series has found a new consistent home. I feel like a lot of people don't realize that the only reason a lot of Nintendo franchises stay dead or have major hiatuses is because there's simply no one around to develop them. Look at Donkey Kong. While I'm sure Nintendo's in the process of rectifying this because of all the money they're putting into the ape as of late, we haven't gotten a game in over a decade, all because Retro Studios has had their hands full with Metroid Prime 4. The Switch era has been great for Nintendo finding homes for franchises or series they otherwise wouldn't be able to put in the time for, and my hope is that the same rings true for Mario & Luigi and we can count on a new release every few years. But for that to happen, I feel like my final most important wish needs to happen too. Please sell well. Mario & Luigi has never performed at a super high level. Bowser's Inside Story's 4.5 mil was their peak, and the rest of the series hovered around 2 million on average before the end times. Brothership is unfortunately not in a position to maximize sales. It's the final release in the Switch's final solo year as Nintendo's main system, with 2 other Mario RPGs releasing in the span of 12 months before it. The only factors that it has in its favor are that it's a Mario game, it's a completely new experience, and it's releasing for the holiday season. I need this game to perform well. Anything above the 3 million mark is incredibly bold, but if we can't outsell 1-2 Switch, we live in an unjust universe. Brothership has so much to prove. A stellar performance shows demand for the series, demand for traditional Mario RPGs, demand for new, unique settings and characters in the Mario world. I need it! Maybe it's lame to end on such an unequivocally boring hope, but I can't see how this doesn't rank above nearly everything else on this list. And I'm cutting myself off. Fun fact, I originally wanted to make a 100 hopes video, but I'd like to convince you that I actually value my time, so 50 will have to do. The Mario Luigi series is finally back in action, and I can't wait to see everything that Brothership brings to the table this November. Also can't wait to go down this list after release and see just how few wishes came to fruition. Or go down this list after uploading and see just how much is irrelevant by the time I finally get this out. But as always, I'd love to hear your greatest hopes for Brothership in the comments below. I'll see you all later.